Jenny Mosher, and today I'm talking with Jenny Kroonstuiver, author of Life Stories and Family Histories. Join me as we learn about Jenny's work processes and what drives her to write. Good morning, Jenny. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Jenny.
Yeah. Not too lockdown stir crazy yet?
Not yet. It's getting close, though. I'd love to be able to go for a drive.
Yeah. It gets a bit like that, doesn't it? But I suppose there's only so many times you can drive to the end of the road or the supermarket, isn't there?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we're in a large LGA.
Yeah. So you get a bit of breathing
Mm.
space. Yeah. So we've published 3 books with you so far,
Mm-hmm.
and your theme, what you write about, seems to be family history or history of people. Your first book, Glimpses of Jean. Jean wasn't a relative, was she?
No, but she was a very, very close friend of the family. And
Right.
we actually called her Auntie Jean. So
Yeah.
she was like an adopted aunt to us
Yep.
all.
Yep.
Yes. hmm
Right. And what she lived in Kalgoorlie?
No, I grew up on a sheep station.
Right.
And when my father first went there in 1963, there was nothing there in terms of a station.
Yeah.
But there was a lime kilns, with a Yugoslav community of about 30 people.
Right.
And
Is this
Auntie,
in Kalgoorlie or
no,
somewhere?
this is about 400 kilometres east of Kalgoorlie on the Nullarbor Plain.
Wow, isolated.
It was, yes. And so Auntie Jean was she and her husband ran the lime kilns community there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right. Okay,
Mm.
so you grew up out there,
Yes, we went there when I was about 8 years old, and so I
right?
did most of my primary schooling on School of the Air, and as did my brothers and my sister.
Right.
And yes, it was a wonderful childhood.
Actually, that's an interesting thought. However many years ago, what was that? About 20 years ago, you were 8,
Oh,
should we
at
say?
least,
At
yes.
least. So those years ago, you were doing School of the Air, and now in this last 18 months, our children have had to adapt to doing homeschooling online.
Absolutely. It's like a full circle. And I watch my
Isn't it?
grandchildren absolutely struggling. So it's a little bit more than 20 years ago.
Yeah,
I watch my grandchildren struggling with the concept of being isolated in their learning.
yeah.
And yet that was an integral part of my own childhood. Yes.
Yeah, that's and they've got the benefit they would have visual as well. You only had the radio.
Yes, we had the Flying Doctor radio and we had 1 hour every couple of days as our lessons, and the rest were correspondence.
Right, right. So you get actually I can remember doing a course in the early 2000s, I think it was, and it was literally correspondence. It,
Mm-hmm.
it hadn't quite made it to internet levels at that stage, and yeah, the packet would come and I'd complete it and send it back. Yeah. Wow, life has changed very quickly, hasn't it?
It certainly has.
It certainly has. Yeah. So
Mm.
3 books under your belt.
hmm
Is there anything you've got more in the works?
I've got 4 in the works, and it's wonderful because I get up each morning and decide which one I'll work on today. So,
So you're working on them concurrently?
oh yes, yes. So
Wow.
one of them is another family history, and it's my husband's side of the family, and
Right.
that's
Yeah.
really challenging, that one, because there's so much Dutch involved,
Yeah.
and I have to translate word by word. So that's very
Okay.
slow and laborious.
Yeah.
But I think the next one that's most exciting is another biography, which is I'm editing the diaries of a very old friend who passed away just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And she and her family escaped communism at the beginning of the Second World War by basically walking from country to country in
Right.
front of the Russian army, trying to escape the Russian army. And it's the most incredible story.
And she kept diaries of that.
She wrote the diaries in her later life as
Yeah.
reflective diaries,
Yeah.
and she lost a brother. Her father was arrested. It was just the most heart wrenching story.
So you've got all her diaries.
Hmm.
Did she have children?
She had three adopted children, and I'm working with them.
Yeah,
And her husband is still alive as well, although he's in his 90s
yeah,
and very elderly.
yeah.
But yes, I'm working with her family at the moment, and they're finding photos and things that can be included in the book.
Oh,
Mm.
fantastic, fantastic. I interviewed Jeff Hopkins last week, and he was talking about legacy publishing, about getting
Mm.
these stories and documenting them of
Mhm.
basically, the ordinary people, the people who don't get reported in the news, but their
Yes.
stories are still so valuable, and we can learn so much from them. Um, do you find it emotionally difficult?
That one I have because she writes very emotionally as well. So sometimes I have to tone it down a little bit because it just gets a little bit too heart wrenching.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yes, that one I find very challenging. But I'm also writing my father's story. He left me his early childhood story with the instructions that I wasn't to do anything with it until after he passed away.
I think I do
And
the same.
yes. So I've been working on that, and he has a totally different style. It's a very narrative, personal style, and that one I love. I've just
Yeah.
been working through that, and he's a gifted storyteller. And to be honest, I have to do very little work on his writing.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good. So
Mhm.
what was his background? Is there something special about his story that
He grew up as the eldest of 13 children in the Depression years.
oh my
And
goodness.
yes, and he became a jackaroo in Western Queensland, which is where my station heritage comes from.
Yeah,
And he just tells the story of his early years as a jackaroo and how he learned to become a station manager and the types and lots of stories. The outback is full of rich stories, and my dad was a wonderful storyteller.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Mm.
It's interesting. You probably have to get a uni degree to be a jackaroo these days, I'd assume. It's
Well, yes.
um yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I suppose we still have jackaroos, don't we? Or
Oh, yes, we have
yeah,
jackaroos and we have chillaroos. Yes,
yep,
still very
yeah,
much an integral part of station life. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I suppose there's some things that can't be automated, aren't there?
Yes, that's right.
Probably just as well. Wow. So
Mm.
that's your dad's story, your friend's story, and two others.
Right. So the Kroonstuiver history is one, and the
That's
other
right.
one is the novel. And the novel's been on the table for 20 years now, and every now and again I get a surge and write another chapter or so. But
Yeah.
I've discovered that I'm not a fiction writer, and it's really hard work writing a novel, which amazes me because I don't read nonfiction. I only read fiction,
Oh,
and
really?
yet my writing is totally nonfiction. That's the genre I'm most comfortable in.
Is
But
that interesting?
yeah.
Actually, it's good that you can recognise that, though. It's good that you can recognise that as a writer,
Mm,
um, that there is a difference between fiction and non-fiction writing.
very
There
much
really
so.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Your background, your work background, was that writing? Were you a writer?
No, I was a teacher for about 15 years.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I taught in fairly remote areas of Australia, including the Northern Territory.
Wow.
And then for the last 16 years, until I retired, I ran a national training council for the Australian meat industry.
Right.
And although that wasn't a writing job, I actually wrote heaps of training manuals and
Yeah.
materials for training. So I had done quite a lot of researching and writing as part of that role.
Yeah. So that's a question. Research. The research for your husband's family, the Kroonstuivers.
Mhm.
Um, how do you research? Like, you can't go onto Trove for that. Or I suppose you could for stuff that's happened since they arrived in Australia. But
Yeah.
how do you research the earlier stuff?
Well, I'm a member of lots and lots of genealogical sites, if only I could say it properly. And
I know the feeling. Family
um,
history sites, I cheat.
yeah, but I'm very lucky in the fact that the Dutch have excellent record keeping.
Right.
They Each province has many localised records, and they've been collecting them in a lot of detail since the early 1800s.
Yeah.
And the church records are pretty much intact from before then as well.
Right.
So there's lots of records in Holland that are available.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, they are all in Dutch, hence the need to use Google Translate
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah.
But that's where you're lucky, and you just find, okay, somebody might be listed as a timberman or a salmon fisher, so
Mhm.
you can go in then and research the history of that particular industry in that area and get a
Mhm.
sense for what they were doing and how they operated.
And what their life was like. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. Because family history is more than just so and so was born on this day, died on that day, married this person, had these kids, lived here, lived there. It's about how they live their life. If you're going to write family
yes.
history, you've got to add that colour, haven't you? You've got to add that.
You do, and you have to provide historical context as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
With the Australian newspapers, in the last book I wrote, one of the things I did was on the day they arrived in Australia on the ship, I'd go and
Hmm.
have a look at the newspapers of the day and see what the front page stories were, so that
Okay.
and the weather. And so I could find out what they actually stepped off the ship into and
Yeah.
what were the burning events of the day. And it just
Yeah.
provides such an interesting context for
Hmm.
what they faced when they first landed in Australia.
And especially if you consider that, they would have been out of communication for quite a long time,
Yes,
months possibly. And then they finally arrive and to find out what's been happening while they've been, yeah, isolated on that boat for so long. Must have been, yeah, quite overwhelming. Yeah.
absolutely. I know that one of the families in the last book I wrote, they arrived in the middle of the gold rushes in Western New South Wales. And
Hmm.
so the ship would have had hundreds of people who were just there to get off and go and find gold,
Yeah.
plus the fact there was a huge Chinese migration at the same time. So
Yes.
they would
Yeah.
have stepped off onto a wharf which was absolutely teeming with Chinese people as well. And for people coming straight from the Midlands of Britain, that would have been incredibly confronting. They wouldn't have known what they'd come to.
Well, actually, it's probably quite right. They would,
Mm,
they probably would be so unaware of those other cultures back then.
that's
Yeah,
right.
that would, yeah,
Mm,
you don't think about that. Yeah,
mm,
it's just not, it's not just about the documenting, is it? It's about all the effects of yeah, and it's about being able to bring that to life, how those people would feel.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky that when I was at university, I actually studied a lot of history, and I'd never ever got a chance to teach it. And
Right.
now I'm sort of reliving my childhood here. I just love researching all the historical context.
Yeah.
And the Kroonstuiver family history that I'm working on at the moment, they were in Indonesia from about 1900 onwards and caught up in the Japanese um, takeover of Indonesia and then subsequently the Indonesian War of Independence, where some of the family members disappeared,
Mm.
and learning the history of that time, which affected the family, is just incredible.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing story. They were all interned in Japanese camps, and some of them went through terrible times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Yes, it's yeah, war. Wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's
that's right. Mm.
yeah. Wow. Now you mentioned something about who was it had 13 children in the
Oh,
Depression?
my father was the eldest of 13.
13 children
Yes.
in the Depression. Were they able to keep the family together or did they have to like give some of the kids away?
No, no, they kept the family together. My grandmother was an extraordinary lady. And of course, the children were spread out over quite a number of years. So
Oh, so
my
some would have
father
been
had left
adults.
home by the
Yeah.
time my youngest aunt was born.
Yeah.
My grandfather, though, he was a soldier settler,
Mm-hmm.
and he enlisted in both wars, although he never got sent overseas. But
Mm.
he was away for quite long periods during the wartime.
Yeah.
And in those years, and in the Depression years, my father and his other brothers, who were the eldest ones in the family, really had to step up in terms of taking on part-time work in orchards and things like that. They grew up around Griffith,
All
and
right.
so they worked a lot in the orchards and on other farms,
Yeah.
just to help make ends meet with the family. So it was
Mm.
really tough times.
Mm. And of
Mm.
course, in those days, we didn't have a minimum working age, I don't think. I mean, they would have been working at what, 12, 13, 14, would they?
Oh, yes, they were only early teens, yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we expected our children to grow up a lot faster
Absolutely, and
back
they
then.
had go and even the younger ones were off trapping rabbits every night just to put meat on the table. So,
Yeah. And then you
yes,
pay $100 for a plate of rabbit in a top-class restaurant, don't you?
yes.
But, wow. So when you're writing 4 books at once, I suppose they're all different.
Mhm.
They're all different source material, all different stories, aren't they? So there'd be no chance of confusion. Do you find like you wake up and one is drawing you more than another?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah,
Like I've worked almost exclusively on the Kroonstuiver story over the last couple of weeks because
yeah.
I had a big breakthrough and discovered a branch of the family that I've been trying to discover for years, and so that's been really exciting because I've discovered pirates and slave traders and
Wow.
all kinds of colourful characters. So I've worked almost exclusively on that for the last couple of weeks.
So you know your next
Um,
job, don't you? You've got to research those guys and then do a film script so that you can get into Hollywood.
Oh no,
Um,
I don't think that's my genre either.
but it's like that breakthrough. It's
Mm.
just like dominoes tumbling, isn't it? Like it's
Yes,
I've got a couple of brick walls myself, and it's just why can I not break these walls down? And I think someone must have been adopted or somebody's father was naughty or something, and the people I think I'm related to, I'm not really related to. I think there's something going on there. It's but yeah, without those documents you'll never know.
that's
It's
right. And it's
yeah.
sometimes and it's just a word. And I went
Mm.
back and just found a surname mentioned in a marriage document. Thought, I wonder if that's related. And I went in and it just opened it all up. A
Yeah,
complete smorgasbord of discovery. It was wonderful.
lovely. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
personal question: have you had your DNA tested?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
And I
Did that
actually
help?
it helped originally because it gave me confirmation on my when I was writing my father's history, that it gave me confirmation that I was on the right track going into the British aristocracy. It
Right.
did throw up an unexpected amount of Northern Europe heritage, which I've originally attributed to the Vikings. And then I discovered that I had Dutch heritage on my family side, not just on my husband's family side.
Oh,
And
wonder.
the Dutch that I'm descended from were the founders of New York.
Oh, okay.
And,
Right.
and so that was amazing. So the DNA actually opened that up for me and sort of said to me that there's something more here that you haven't found yet.
Yeah, haven't
Mm,
thought. Yeah, that's
mm,
what I find interesting. It's just those things that, and of course, the more people that get the tested, the more refined your own test comes. Every 6 months or so, mine gets refreshed, and now I've found out I think I've got 4% Welsh in me, which didn't exist before.
yes.
I have no idea where it comes from, but um,
Mm.
what I do find interesting, I've got a couple of links in my family, and of course, I'm not a Mosher, I'm a Mosher by marriage, but I've got a couple of links in my family who have Mosher ancestors from the same Rhode Island area that my husband comes from.
Goodness me.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so now the thing is to prove that I'm related to my husband. No, actually, no, don't want to consider that.
Oh, it sounds reasonably distant. So
I think so, pretty safe.
yes.
But yeah,
Mm,
it's just the way people move around the world, and
populating those links. Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
Oh, it
Yeah.
certainly is, and I lose entire days. And
Mm,
at the end of the day, I'll find I've written an entire sentence as part of the script that I'm working on, but I've
yeah.
had a journey of discovery that's gone down hundreds of rabbit holes,
Yeah.
and had great fun in finding out lots of things that are totally irrelevant.
Although you think they are, like that
Mm,
name, which help break down that wall.
that's
So
exactly
that's the other
right.
thing,
Yeah,
you go down that path, you enjoy it, and then maybe 6 weeks or 6 months later, something will happen, and you'll think, "Oh, I read something about that,"
that's
and
right. Yes.
you just don't know.
Mm.
You've got to enjoy it. I think if you don't enjoy it, it's yeah, it's no fun. You've got to have fun with it, haven't you?
Oh, I agree. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So with the novel, what do you reckon you'll do there? Do you reckon you'll keep going?
Yes, well, I turned it into historical fiction, so at least it was
Hmm.
partly fun.
Hmm.
And so I've pretty much finished the narrative side of it.
Hmm.
Now I've just got to go and polish the language and just put a bit of embellishment in it because it's a bit too much. This happened, then that happened, and it needs a bit more colour in it. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
going to be the challenge. Yes.
Yeah. So I suppose it's a case of trying to get your characters to tell the story rather than you telling it
Yes, that's
within
right.
the
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't envy you there. I have tried a bit of fiction, and I actually
Hmm.
find because I've got a corporate background, um, that my fiction is a bit heavy-handed as well. It's
Hmm.
and especially like I have a theory or a philosophy that fiction is entertainment, but you should also get a little education out of it. And then if you're writing non-fiction, which is educational, you should still put a bit of entertainment in it to keep it going. So I do find that my fiction is probably too. I need more entertainment and less of the education.
I
Um,
couldn't agree more. You've just described my writing perfectly.
oh dear.
Mm.
So do you set yourself goals, or do you do you have you decided, okay, I'm going to get this book out this year, this book out next year, or do you just write until you feel like it's completed?
The Russian book I intend to get out before the end of the year.
Yeah,
The Kroonstuiver one, that's open ended. I have no idea when that's going to be finished.
yeah.
I think there's a long way to go on that still.
Hmm.
My father's book, just about ready, I think.
Yeah,
Who knows with the novel? That could be another 20 years.
yeah. Hey, it's waited this long, it'll wait a bit longer.
Yes, that's right.
But that's
Mm.
good. That's good that you sort of,
Mm.
it's like cooking a roast dinner, it'll be ready when it's ready.
Yes,
It's
that's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
And I suppose that's the difference between your style of writing and if you were, say, a novelist by profession, you would have to have deadlines. You would have to be delivering a book every 6 months or every 12 months or whatever your path is to stay in business. But because you do
Yeah.
this for self-fulfillment,
Oh, yes. I'm never going to be a famous writer. I'm quite comfortable with that. And I'm
yeah,
never going to earn a great income from my writing. And I'm quite comfortable with that as well.
yeah,
I do it for my own enjoyment. And for the family history aspect of it, I do that for the family. I
yeah,
really think it's important that family stories are recorded.
yeah.
Um, For example, with the Kroonstuiver side, my husband's family didn't even know the names of their grandparents.
Oh,
And
really?
yes, they were the ones that disappeared during the Second World War. And so having been able to uncover that part of it has been just as important for them as it has been for my children
Yeah,
to start knowing and understanding their heritage.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
There's a lot to be said for knowing where you come from, no matter who you are. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and I mean, I noticed that with the Winton, your Winton book. That
Hmm.
was about the Swan family,
Yes.
if I remember correctly, and they came to Glengallen. I mean, I noticed, a lot of people who were obviously family researchers buying those books. Um,
Oh, very much
so,
so. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
With Winton, I was very lucky that the 13 children in my father's family had reproduced to with similar numbers of children. So I had a
ready
ready-made
market.
market there.
So that's the clue. If you're going to write family history, make sure that you've got families with lots of generations with lots of children.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, that's good. But I also, and I said this to Jeff Hopkins, I mean, we do legal deposit for these books. So, we send a copy to the National Library in Canberra, copy to the State Library, copy to the State Parliamentary Library, copy to the University of Sydney Library. So there's 4 physical copies out there on the public record now, and they will be there for, barring disaster, hundreds of years. So that documentation will exist in one way or another. Someone can find it down the path. So those people are, in a sense, still alive, aren't they, when you do that?
I think that's wonderful. I think it's so important that they are recorded for posterity. So
Yeah.
it's great that they're in the libraries. Yes.
Yeah. They don't have to be a general or a major, or they don't have to be anybody famous. And the best stories come out from the people that aren't, don't they?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So you're retired. So how many hours a day do you work? Or do you write? Sorry, it's not work. How many hours a day do you write?
It really depends. Like the last couple of weeks, I've been working 8 to 10 hours a day because I've been right into it.
Yeah.
And I sit down in the morning and next minute I look up and it's dark.
Yeah.
Some days only a couple of hours a day. It just depends on what the urge is. Sometimes the housework really has to be done. So,
Damn.
yes, I know. So I have a break and do it. And being in lockdown, that gives me lots and lots of time to write. And I guess I'm writing more over the last couple of weeks than I have in weeks before. Just depends what I feel like. There's no rules. I keep telling myself I'm retired now. There's no rules.
Exactly. Yeah. So do you write 7 days a week, or do you actually take a weekend? Do you take time off?
No, sometimes I
No?
write 7 days a week. Sometimes I won't touch it for 4 days.
Yeah.
I'm just a bit burned out and think, no, I need a break away from it. And I might think about it a lot, but I don't do any writing for a few days. And then when I come back, I'm hot to trot and ready to go again.
Good on you. Yeah, I think you do need to have that. Well, it's a weekend, isn't it? And it's a weekend for your brain. So you probably do need that little stop for a little while, just to. I have a friend that said, she said sometimes you have to make room for other things to come in.
Yes.
So probably that little break. Yeah.
Well, when I was writing Glengallen, that at Christmas time I drove to Cairns from here and went by.
How long did that take?
4 days. Yeah.
Yeah, it would.
So I actually went to Glengallen during that time and walked around the house and had a look at and took lots of photos and read all the history there. And that was wonderful. It gave me a real perspective on what I was writing about and gave me a sense of the area that my ancestors went to.
Yeah.
And I didn't write for 2 weeks.
Right.
But when I came back, I had a lot more material.
Yeah. Did you find that you were itching to write while you were away?
No, I was quite happy to set it to one side. Sometimes I really have to sit and think things through, and I might try a different angle or reorganize something in my mind. And when I come back to it, I know that I have to do some polishing and some editing and turn things around.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's interesting, because everybody does it differently. Everyone approaches it differently. So this has been interesting to see how you approach it and how you put it together and how it drives you. So there's a question. You've got 3 nonfiction books on the burner at the moment. When you finish those, let's forget about the fiction. The novel might, as you said, could be another 20 years. But when you finish these 3 nonfiction, do you think that will make room for something else to come in, or do you think you're a bit done?
I don't think I'll ever be done. I think at some point I will write my own story.
Yeah.
Both of my parents sat down and wrote their own stories before they passed away, and they've been really important parts of the books that I've published.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to write mine as well. So I will do that. I think I'll be giving the same rules as my father did, that it's not to be published until I'm gone. But
Yeah.
yeah, I will do that, and I'm sure I'll find something else to write about. I have no doubt that there's more out there.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of fodder. I mean, there would be there's possibly angles you can take from what you've already published or what you will be publishing. There's possibly spin-off things that can come from some of those books as well, I'd imagine. So
Yes.
yeah. Well, look, it's lovely talking with you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for that background on your writing processes and how it comes to you, and what you do with it. Hopefully, this will be of help to other people writing their family histories too. So,
Thank you for asking me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
yeah. Well, lovely to meet you, albeit by cyberspace.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, enjoy your writing. Enjoy your lockdown.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
You've been listening to an IndieMosh interview with Jenny Kroonstuiver. If you'd like to learn more about Jenny or check out some of her books, then visit indiemosh.com.au or search for her books at your favourite online retailer. I'm Jenny Mosher. Thanks for listening.